Hi, my name is James Shepard, and today I'm going to give you 3 problems with surcharging. 3 problems with surcharging. Now, one trend I've noticed as I've talked to ISOs and agents that watch my content is that a lot of them still, in their mind, think that surcharging and cash discounting is the same, okay? Now, there are a lot of differences between these two things, but just the 30-second snapshot so that I can get onto the content today and you'll understand what I'm talking about. You need to understand that with cash discounting, cash adjustments, whatever people are calling it, in-kind incentives, anything like that, those programs are predicated on increasing the revenue on all non-cash sales, which includes both PIN debit and signature debit. So if somebody runs their check card, whether they run it as credit or debit, doesn't matter, then they're going to still have, either way, if it's not cash, it's a card, they're going to have that, the service fee or the non-cash adjustment or the price increase or whatever it is, however it's, going, it's being added over there. Whereas with surcharging is very heavily regulated by compliance rules and state laws and things like that. Surcharging currently in the U.S., you cannot add the surcharge to a signature debit or PIN debit transaction, only to pure credit card transactions. So that's the difference between those two. Now, having said that, I want to give you 3 issues right now with surcharging because a lot of ISOs are looking at, okay, should we switch from cash discount to surcharging, or should we add surcharging? And there's 3 big issues right now with surcharging and why I'm advising most of my clients that, it's a little too early, I feel like, to make the full switch over. And so I'm going to give you my advice at the end about what to do at this point. Okay, so number 1, the first issue is that surcharging is still a little bit more complicated, a lot more complicated to price and to sell for a sales agent, okay? So for newer sales agents to the industry that are getting into the industry, and I'm talking about, I've worked with ISOs with big sales teams that are trying to make these transitions, and it's actually pretty challenging because the new salespeople, many of them literally don't even understand what signature debit is. They don't even know that exists. I talked to 3 agents last week who had made the switch from cash discounting to surcharging, and 3 of them that I talked to literally thought that as long as they didn't set the merchant up on PIN debit, didn't give them a PIN pad, it was the same thing as cash discounting because they were adding the service fee to everything. And then I'm like, no. And our quote tool our quote tool for their ISO does an accurate proposal. And they're like, why is there still these debit fees? We don't understand that. And I'm like, because they're processing debit. No, I didn't give them a PIN pad. I'm like, no, there's signature debit. There's you can process your card without a PIN and it's still a debit card, And so, there's just things like that. And then the pricing, you can very easily, you can't really negotiate the pricing very well because, if a new agent doesn't understand, they can very easily give away all the margin. So it's very confusing with some of that stuff. So the biggest problem, number 1, is just that it's still a little bit more challenging to sell. Obviously, I'm working on solving that problem myself. I have a new course on surcharging that will help to understand things, but I'm actually making a new course that's going to be cash discounting and surcharging and kind of explaining the differences, how they work, and all of that. But that's one issue with it. The second issue with surcharging is that surcharging is not in all 50 states yet. And that is actually kind of a big problem, especially the fact that New York, where they have quote unquote allowed surcharging, but the law in New York is so prohibitive in the way that you have to adjust the pricing and the price labels and all that stuff that it's just a little too early, like a little bit. In probably 6 to 12 months, I think surcharging will be in all 50 states. And I think the New York law will either be struck down or revised in some way. So I think there's definitely going to be a time where surcharging makes a lot of sense. I personally think that long-term surcharging is actually we're going to be able to surcharge all the card types too, like they do in Australia. But right now it's just a little too early because of the fact that it's not in all 50 states. So that to me is a pretty big barrier to entry right now. The third issue is that surcharging is not integrated with anything. Literally, right now, if you ask me, said, James, what POS systems right now allow you to do compliant surcharging? I don't know of any. Hopefully some of you are going to watch this video, whether it's on LinkedIn or YouTube. If you have a company that does surcharging on your POS system, reach out to me. We'll do a podcast interview. I'll promote it. That's great. But as of right now, I literally don't know of anybody. And the reason is really simple. Like even Clover right now, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I looked about a week ago. I didn't see any surcharge apps in Clover. And the reason is really simple. It's because when you're talking about a cash discount program or non-cash adjustment or whatever you want to call it, well, from a developer perspective, them creating the software, all they have to do is say, okay, if it's a cash sale, don't add the service fee. If it's not a cash sale, add the service fee. Pretty simple, right? You can do all of that all on one kind of transactional thing, right? With surcharging, there's this extra step. You first have to check, is it a debit card? If it is a debit card, then you have to add, and only then you add the service fee on, or the surcharge, whatever you want to call it. And then you have to have the total transaction, and then you present that to the customer to charge them. So there's like several extra steps that get stuck in there. And there are some companies with APIs that come out that make this, it's not like it's not possible. It's definitely possible. It's just, it is extra steps, and people haven't written the apps for it. And so to my knowledge, there is no surcharge app in the Point Terminal, in Clover, in many of these other kind of really popular POS systems. They just don't have the capability yet to do surcharging. So that's kind of a big problem. So what should you do about this, right? Now, having said this, of course, there are terminals that do surcharging for sure. There's many companies that are using like the PAX terminal, the Deja Vu terminal to do compliant surcharge programs. So you can do that on a smaller merchant. My advice right now is this. I would advise that you start looking into having a compliant surcharge program, but I think it's best if you have both. I really think you want to have a compliant surcharge program and a cash discount program. I really do, because what you're going to find is for your more experienced agents, they could actually sell more surcharging than cash discounting, because when you're actually out in the field talking to merchants and you know what you're talking about, the biggest objection the merchants are going to throw up there is going to be, well, my customers don't like, my customers won't like this, that they have to use cash. They're not going to want to use cash. They don't carry cash or whatever. If you sell surcharging, of course, you can say, well, that's okay. They still could just use their check card, whether it's PIN debit or signature debit. They can still use that and they can get out of it. So your experienced agents are going to like the surcharge program. Obviously, the cash discounting, cash adjustments, those are still more profitable than surcharging, significantly more profitable. So they're also going to like that, right? But they're going to have some people they can't sell, and they're going to want to go to surcharging. So there's, I think in our industry, it's funny because I think we've kind of picked sides. And I mean, I'm guilty of this because I've been talking about cash discounting for, a long time, and kind of like, cash discounting is better than surcharging and things like that. And, again, because of the three reasons I just gave you, I still believe cash discounting is maybe on par, if not a little better than surcharging for a sales organization. But there's really no reason these two things have to be mutually exclusive. There's really not. I talked to somebody yesterday. I'm going to have in the 3 days ago. I'm going to talk to on the podcast soon, and his company is doing 3 different kinds. They're doing a true cash discount, another cash discount, and then a surcharge program. And so they have all 3, and I think that's really the right way to go. I know there's different companies like that are offering it. So if you have questions about that, if you're looking for a company that fits that description, let me know. If you need consulting services or anything like that, just reach out. I'm glad to help out in this kind of transition because it can be a little bit tricky. But I think the key here is offer surcharging and cash discounting now as we go through this transition period. And then maybe a year from now, maybe 2 years from now, you'll be able to kind of go away from the cash discounting, go all in on surcharging, because it will be integrated with everything. It will be in all 50 states, and we'll have all the tools and training for you to make it a little easier to sell. My name is James Shepard. I hope that you have an awesome day.